They threw me a party to pressure me into sharing my lottery money. I took the mic, smiled, and told the whole town, "It's not theirs, it's mine." Hey there, welcome to today's story. Is this your first time on the channel? Or are you one of the familiar faces coming back? Either way, I'm really glad you're here. Before we dive in, I've got a small favor to ask. I'm on a mission to reach 1,000 subscribers, and your click could make all the difference. If you enjoy meaningful, real-life stories that stir something deep, consider subscribing. It helps me keep going and keep growing. Now, today's story is about a woman who won the lottery, only to discover that not everyone sees your blessing as your own. Family, money, betrayal. Ever felt used by people who were supposed to love you unconditionally? Let's see how she faced it all, and what she chose to do when everything fell apart. Stay with me till the end. You might just see a piece of yourself in her journey.
You ever get that feeling something's about to change, but you don't know if it'll ruin you or set you free? That was me. Rain-soaked, exhausted, and sandwiched between two coughing strangers at a bus terminal in Charleston, gripping a crumpled brown bag of reheated pad thai. I wasn't even supposed to be there. I'd missed my connecting train after bombing a job interview in Atlanta. My shoes squelched with each step as I wandered to the nearest vending kiosk. I meant to buy a water. Instead, I bought a $5 scratch-off ticket because the machine was out of water, and I figured at least scratching something gave me control over something in my life. What I didn't know then was that the moment I pressed that button, my life forked into before and after. The winning numbers weren't flashy, didn't spell fate or destiny, but I'll never forget the last three. 27, 43, 11. My birth date backward. I didn't even scratch it until I was on the bus, wedged against a window that smelled like damp rust and bad decisions. And then it happened. 6 matching numbers. $2.5 million. Right there between the shrieks of a toddler and the scent of fried chicken, someone snuck aboard. I must have stared at the ticket for a full 10 minutes. Then I blinked, hid it inside a paperback copy of The Bell Jar, and didn't breathe normally until we crossed state lines. Let me back up. I'm Vivian Hawthorne. I'm 35. I teach history at a public high school in a town you've probably never heard of in South Carolina. Or rather, I did until that bus ride. I'd grown up in the type of family where silence was louder than shouting. My parents, Douglas and Martha, were pillars of their community. He used to teach philosophy at the university, she played piano for the church choir, and ran the neighborhood newsletter like a covert operation. To outsiders, we were a postcard, but inside was more like a locked piano. Polished, impressive, and mute, unless you were Sienna, my younger sister. Sienna was the sun around which our family revolved. Wild, impulsive, magnetic. She once dropped out of college to open a vegan candle bar in Vermont. And my parents not only supported her, they invested. I, on the other hand, got a toaster for my graduation and a firm reminder to be practical. I didn't hate them. I just knew my place. Background character in the Sienna show. So when I won the lottery, when I finally caught a break, I didn't tell anyone for 3 days. Not even Zara, my best friend and ex-roommate, until I'd taken a breath, gone to the lottery office, signed the paperwork, and locked the ticket in a fireproof safe under my bed. They offered a ceremonial check, and I posed for photos in a wrinkled blazer with mascara smudged from crying in the parking lot beforehand. The real money, they said, would come in 2 weeks via direct deposit. In that moment, I didn't think about investments or early retirement or even the debt I could finally erase. I thought, I wonder if they'll finally see me now. And just like that, the part of me that still wanted my mother's approval, my father's respect, my sister's admiration, it reared its hopeful little head. That's where everything started to go sideways. 3 days after the win, I drove the 2 hours back to my hometown of Fairgrove, population 6,000, and frozen in a 1997 time capsule. Gas station pizza, 2 churches, 1 thrift store, and a community Facebook group that still debates whether pineapple belongs on pizza. It was the weekend of the Apple Blossom Festival, the one event that turned Main Street into a swirl of funnel cakes, farm truck parades, and local dads pretending they still had rhythm in the line dance competition. I figured if there was any time to tell my family, it was during the one weekend they were already in a good mood. I told myself it would be symbolic. Full circle, a new beginning, all the hopeful crap people tell themselves when they're trying to ignore a gut feeling. My parents' house looked the same as always. Cream siding, matching shutters, a ceramic owl that watched you approach like it was judging your cholesterol. Mom opened the door wearing her usual floral blouse and that tight-lipped smile that meant, "Don't start anything, we have guests later." "Vivian," she said, a little surprised, "you didn't say you were coming this weekend." "I wanted it to be a surprise," I smiled, holding up a bag of pastries from Zara's favorite bakery in Charleston. "Thought I'd bring breakfast for everyone." Her eyes drifted to the bag, then quickly to my shoes. I was wearing real leather boots. Not extravagant, but not Payless either. Her eyes narrowed. "You look nice." "Thanks." Dad was in the den, already watching reruns of Antiques Roadshow. He gave me the same greeting he always did. Absent-minded, distracted, like I'd walked in from the post office instead of out of his womb. Sienna wasn't there yet, no surprise. She had a flair for dramatic entrances, like she expected confetti to fall when she arrived. Over pancakes and mild family banter, I worked up the courage. My palms were sweating into my coffee mug. When there was a lull, I cleared my throat. "So, I have some news." Mom didn't look up from her fork. Dad kept chewing. "I won the lottery." Pause. Dad snorted. "How much? $10? $2.5 million. Silence. Then, all at once, forks clantered, Mom gasped, Dad sat upright like someone shocked his spine. I watched their faces morph through stages. Disbelief, excitement, calculation. "Oh my God, Vivian!" Mom rushed over and kissed my cheek like I was a prize-winning goat at the county fair. "This is unbelievable." And then she said it. The sentence that changed everything. "Wait until Sienna hears!" Like clockwork. The front door opened. Speak of the devil! And she breezes in with a matcha latte and oversized sunglasses like she's auditioning for a reality show. Hey, sorry I'm late. Traffic. What's going on?" Before I could answer, Mom leapt in, practically vibrating. "Vivian won the lottery! $2.5 million!" Sienna froze for a millisecond. Then she smiled, wide and artificial, like a sales rep upselling a vacuum. "That's incredible, Viv! Oh my God, we're gonna have so much fun with this." I blinked. "We?" Before I could correct her, Dad chimed in. "Perfect timing, actually. Sienna, tell your sister about the boutique." Sienna hesitated, then launched into a rehearsed monologue about her struggling art cafe, rent increases, unexpected inventory issues, and a business loan defaulting. Mom added, "You could really give her a leg up, Viv. It's just a little help to keep the business afloat." It took everything in me not to drop my mug. I'd barely finished saying the words, "I won," and already the narrative had shifted from my dream come true to how it could serve theirs. They didn't ask how I was feeling, what I planned, what I wanted. They saw a golden ticket and assumed they had a cut. For a moment, I wondered if I was being paranoid. But then Sienna leaned in and whispered, "I was thinking maybe like 100 grand? That's nothing to you now, right?" And just like that, I knew. I hadn't come home to celebrate. I'd walked straight into a negotiation I never agreed to. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my childhood bed, same creaky frame, same faded posters of early 2000s indie bands I'd clung to like escape hatches, and stared at the water stain on the ceiling shaped like a broken heart. Real poetic, universe. Mom had insisted I stay the night. "It's been so long since we were all under the same roof," she'd said sweetly, as if proximity could mask decades of imbalance. But the air in the house felt suffocating, heavy with expectation. Every smile at dinner had an edge. Every "we're so proud" came with a silent "don't forget who raised you." I was back to being 12, inviolable until I had something they wanted. The next morning, I found Dad waiting at the kitchen table, already dressed like he had somewhere important to be, though he was long retired. He didn't even say good morning before cutting to it. "Your sister's situation is serious, Viv. She's not some flake. She's got potential." "She's had potential through 3 majors, 5 jobs, and 2 Etsy stores, Dad," I replied, pouring coffee. "At some point, maybe potential isn't the problem." His jaw tightened. "Don't be cruel." I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was exhausted. Exhausted from years of being told to be the bigger person, be grateful, be patient. But most of all, I was tired of being told that Sienna's dreams mattered more than my survival. When I was in grad school eating rice and beans 6 days a week, they said nothing. When I worked full-time and still couldn't afford a dentist, they sent holiday cards and expected me to drive home with gifts. But now that I had a taste of something more, suddenly, family meant share. "Vivian," Mom said that afternoon, appearing in my doorway like a sitcom ghost, "I've been thinking. You know that inheritance your grandmother left you? You mean the one you guilted me into splitting with Sienna?" She flinched, but recovered. "Well, this is different. That was about fairness. This is opportunity." I stared at her. "Fairness was you taking $10,000 from my college fund to cover Sienna's yoga retreat in Sedona." "She was going through a hard time." "So was I!" My voice cracked. It caught me off guard. I hadn't raised my voice to my mother in 20 years. She blinked. "We just want what's best for the family." I let the silence stretch between us until it became unbearable. "You want what's best for Sienna, and that's not the same thing." Later that evening, I sat on the back porch with Zara on the phone, staring out at the hydrangeas I used to trim every summer like a chore I hated. "So let me get this straight. You win the lottery, and now you're the family ATM?" Basically. "And they haven't asked once what you want?" "Nope." Zara let out a low whistle. "God, Viv! I knew they played favorites, but this is next-level manipulation." She wasn't wrong. What made it worse was how familiar it felt, how easy it was to slip back into that role of the reasonable one, the dependable daughter, the filler character in the Sienna show. I thought about that night during senior year when I got accepted to a top university, and Dad barely looked up from his paper. Meanwhile, Sienna once won a participation ribbon for a community art fair, and Mom threw her a party. I thought about the year I worked 2 jobs to pay off my car while Sienna borrowed theirs for emergencies that turned out to be yoga brunches and crystal shops. Those moments were whispers back then, but now they were a scream. The next day, Sienna showed up at my motel room unannounced. I'd decided to check out of the house, literally and figuratively, before I lost my grip entirely. She walked in like she owned the place, balancing 2 iced coffees and flashing that sunbeam smile she weaponized so well. "I brought your favorite," she said, holding out a cup. "Cool, I drink tea now." She blinked, confused. "Okay, wow, you're really going through a thing, huh?" "No. I'm just not letting you frame this like I'm the one being weird." She sat across from me. "Look, I get it. It's your money. You don't owe me anything. But if you were thinking of helping, I put together a business plan, like a real one with projections and everything." She pulled out a manila envelope like we were in Shark Tank Family Edition. I didn't open it. "Sienna, when Grandma died, you took your inheritance and booked a trip to Bali. You said you needed to recenter. You never offered to help me cover rent or even take me out to dinner. That was different." "No, it wasn't. It's always been different for you." Her eyes welled up, but I didn't move. She'd cried her way out of everything since she was 5. Do you know what it felt like growing up knowing I was second place? To watch you be celebrated for breathing while I had to earn every ounce of attention? Viv, I'm not the villain for protecting what I finally earned. I'm not selfish for wanting space. And I'm not sorry for not setting myself on fire just to keep you warm. Sienna sat back like she'd been slapped. Her voice, when it came, was quiet. Mom said you'd changed. I thought she was exaggerating. No. I just finally remembered I have a spine. She left without finishing her coffee. For the first time in years, I didn't follow her out the door. That night, I opened my laptop and started listing everything I wanted to do. Pay off my loans, travel to Iceland, take a woodworking class, maybe even start a scholarship for girls who grow up overlooked. None of it included rescuing people who only remembered I existed when they needed something. I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. And that, I realized, was far more dangerous to them than any check I could ever write. I left Fairgrove the next morning without saying goodbye. No dramatic speech, no door-slamming scene. Just me, a suitcase, and a mind racing too fast to form coherent thoughts. I checked into a small lakeside inn an hour out of town, far enough from home to feel anonymous, close enough to still get decent cell service. Zara called as I unpacked. "You sound like you just escaped a cult," she said after I vented for 15 straight minutes. "I think I did," I murmured. That evening, I sat by the window in my little rented cabin, a glass of wine in one hand, a legal pad in the other. I started listing things again, this time under the heading, what I actually want. Peace, boundaries, time, forgiveness, maybe, eventually. I was halfway through scribbling new locks for my apartment when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom. "Checked your mail at the house. Something important arrived." Weird. I hadn't used my parents' address for anything in years. Curious, and against my better judgment, I texted Aunt Lilith, my mother's younger sister, and the only relative who hadn't pressured me since the lottery reveal. "Can you swing by the house and grab it for me?" She agreed. 2 hours later, she showed up at my cabin with a weathered envelope in her hand. It smelled faintly of sandalwood and dust. I didn't open it, but, "Viv, your mom's been acting strange lately." I nodded. Stranger than usual? Stranger than ever. I waited until she left before sliding my finger beneath the seal. The envelope held 2 things. A folded sheet of thick stationery, and a photocopy of a notarized document dated 2 weeks ago. I read the letter first. "My dearest Vivian, I hope you'll forgive the directness of this, but we've had too many strained conversations lately. I wanted you to have this in writing. Your father and I have always tried to raise you girls with fairness in mind, though you often felt differently. We didn't always succeed, but our intentions were grounded in love. In the interest of preserving family unity and to prevent any further bitterness between you and Sienna, we've consulted with a financial attorney and drafted an agreement we believe is in everyone's best interest. As the lottery winnings technically fall under sudden inheritance and family windfall clauses, per language in your grandmother's estate, we believe Sienna is entitled to a percentage of your reward. The document enclosed formalizes a proposed 60-40 division, 60% to you, 40% to her, with the hope this restores balance and allows healing. We're asking you to sign voluntarily. If not, we've been advised we may be able to pursue a claim under undue enrichment and equitable trust theories. I know this seems harsh, but Vivian, family must come before fortune. Love always, Mother." I stared at the page, unblinking. My mind blanked. I hadn't spoken to a financial attorney. They had. The enclosed agreement was laughable, full of vague legalese, half-baked precedent citations, and a space for my signature, already marked with a yellow sticky note labeled, "Just in case you forget where." The candles flickered on the windowsill as I reread the line. We believe Sienna is entitled to a percentage of your reward. Entitled. Not asking, not hoping. Entitled. I let out a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and a groan. For all their subtle manipulation and emotional guilt trips, my parents had just shown their cards. They were willing to claim part of my life-changing miracle as if it had been owed to them all along. As if my decades of independence, struggle, and being the afterthought suddenly didn't count. I took a photo of the letter and forwarded it to Zara. She called 2 minutes later. "This is war," she said, flatly. "I'm drafting you a response." No, not yet. Because as angry as I was also deeply, coldly clear. They weren't trying to work things out. They were trying to trap me into compliance. Guilt-wrapped coercion with a monogrammed envelope. I pulled the envelope back out and flipped it over. It had one more thing inside. A printed spreadsheet labeled Projected Benefits to the Family Estate Post-Lottery Integration. Line items included Sienna's debt consolidation package, $38,000. Boutique relaunch fund, $62,000. Estate landscaping upgrade, mom's request, $15,000. New roof, dad's request, $12,000. Donation to church in family name, $25,000. Vivian's discretionary fund, $500. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because at that point, it was absurd. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was an asset, a liquid resource, an ATM with a pulse. And the worst part? I almost signed it. Some broken reflex inside me almost reached for a pen out of some lifelong need to keep the peace. Instead, I poured myself a second glass of wine and made a different kind of list. This time, it was titled, What I Owe Them. It was blank. 3 days later, I received an email invitation titled Celebration of Family and Community, honoring Vivian Hawthorne. It was from my mother. I blinked at the subject line, reread it twice, and stared at the attached flyer like it had been written in another language. The event was being held at the Fairgrove Civic Hall. There'd be food, music, and a heartfelt tribute to one of Fairgrove's own, whose good fortune will help inspire many. I read that line again, jaw-tightening. There was a quote at the bottom. "When one of us prospers, we all rise." It was credited to Douglas Hawthorne. I hadn't agreed to speak. I hadn't even agreed to attend, but they were already billing me as the guest of honor in what looked suspiciously like a family PR stunt. I forwarded it to Zara. Zara, is this real life or a deleted scene from Succession? Me. They're throwing me a party I didn't ask for to publicly pressure me into handing over money. Zara, want me to crash it in a trench coat and scream objection mid-speech? Tempting. For a day, I debated just not showing up, but something about the whole thing itched under my skin. A part of me, stubborn and sharp, wanted to look them in the eye and make it clear. I was no longer a quiet, compliant side character in the family narrative. So, I went. I wore a navy pantsuit with a neckline just sharp enough to feel like armor. I pinned my hair back like I used to for debate tournaments in high school, and I brought my own speech. When I pulled up to the Civic Hall, there were already balloons outside. A huge banner hung above the entryway. "Congratulations, Vivian!" And beneath that, in smaller font, "Fairgrove's brightest star shines on all of us." The "on all of us" was underlined. Inside, the place was filled with people I hadn't seen in years. Former teachers, neighbors, old classmates. There was even a local reporter setting up a tripod. Mom spotted me first. She looked radiant in her pearl set, like the queen of small-town America. She air-kissed both my cheeks like we were co-hosting a charity gala. "I'm so glad you came," she whispered, her voice syrupy. "This means a lot for the family." Dad shook my hand with the stiff pride of a man preparing to present his daughter to investors. I said nothing, just smiled politely and scanned the room. Sienna stood by the punch table in a flowing white jumpsuit, trying too hard not to look like the star she thought she was. She didn't wave. She didn't need to. Her expression said it all. You better play along. The event began with a prayer. Then, as expected, my father took the mic. "Friends, neighbors, family," he began. "We are here tonight not just to celebrate Vivian's fortune, but to embrace the responsibility and generosity that comes with it." Responsibility. That word again. He went on, quoting scripture and community values, until the moment came. "And now, our Vivian, our daughter, has an announcement to share. A pledge, really. One that reflects who we are as Hawthorns." My pulse thundered in my ears. This was it. The trap. I stepped onto the stage. For a second, I just looked out at the crowd. So many familiar faces, waiting, expecting me to say the right thing, the gracious thing, the good daughter thing. Then I took a breath and pulled out my own folded sheet of paper. "I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight. It's a surprise and an honor. Though I wasn't involved in planning it, I appreciate the sentiment." Polite smiles, applause. Mom's eyes narrowed, sensing deviation. "But I want to be honest with you all. Not just about the lottery, but about what's happened since." You could hear a pin drop. "In the weeks since I won, I've received an outpouring of messages, not of congratulations, but of expectation. Requests, demands, assumptions. People telling me what I should do with my money. People who never cared much about my life until they thought they had a stake in it." A few murmurs rippled through the room. Dad looked like he was chewing glass. Sienna's jaw was tight. "So, tonight, I'm here to clarify one thing. This money is not a community fund. It is not a family resource. It is not a prize to be divided. It's mine." Dead silence. "And while I fully intend to give back to causes I believe in, to people who've supported me without strings, I will not be coerced into funding lifestyles, businesses, or dreams that have nothing to do with me." Gasps. One woman dropped her drink. "I love my family, but love is not a blank check. And support isn't unconditional when it's built on guilt." I folded my speech slowly. "Thank you for coming. Enjoy the cake." And I walked off the stage. The chaos behind me was immediate. Mom followed, hissing, "How dare you do this here?" I turned to her calmly. "You ambushed me." I responded. "That's what family does, right?" Sienna stormed past, her heels clicking like gunfire. "You're a selfish bitch," she muttered. I smiled. "No, Sienna, I'm just done playing the poor one." I didn't drive straight home after the Civic Hall implosion. I took the long way out of Fairgrove, looping past the old train station, the closed-down roller rink, and that rusted water tower that had once felt like the center of the world. I kept driving until the buildings thinned out and the only lights left were the scattered orange glows of gas stations and porch bulbs on sleepy farms. When I finally reached my apartment in Charleston, small, quiet, and just mine, I sat in the car for 15 minutes before getting out. I was exhausted, not from the drive, but from the weight of every false smile, every whispered guilt trip, every time I'd nearly caved to the part of me still begging for their approval. Once inside, I locked the door behind me and leaned against it, letting the silence settle over me like a blanket. It had never felt this quiet before. But it wasn't lonely. It was clean. It was mine. The next morning, I called a locksmith. He came with a small toolbox and a curious smile. Had a break-in? Something like that, I replied. He replaced the locks on both the front and balcony doors, gave me 2 new keys, and a kind look that said he'd seen this kind of thing before, even if it had nothing to do with physical danger. Before he left, I asked, "Do you do smart locks?" He grinned. "Ready to go full fortress?" Let's just say I'm done giving people easy access to my peace. While he worked, I walked room to room and made a list of everything I needed to reset my space. New doorbell camera, a shredder for every piece of unsolicited mail, and eventually a new address, something only I would control. Later that evening, I poured a glass of decaf for once and sat on the balcony. It overlooked the park across the street where joggers passed under fading sunlight and kids shouted over a pickup game of basketball. My phone buzzed, a message from Aunt Lilith. "Heard about the Civic Hall. That took guts, Viv. Proud of you." I smiled. She never said much, but when she did, it mattered. The next morning, I met with Zara for brunch. She brought donuts and case files. We're going to start paperwork on legal protections, restraining orders if needed, letters of cease and desist. You don't need to wait for more drama. Is that overkill? No, it's called boundaries with legal teeth. We spent the afternoon drafting a personal will, financial access protections, and a formal statement to send through my attorney if anyone from the family tried to contact me again. It felt weird, cold maybe, but also necessary. Because the thing about peace is, once you taste it, you start realizing how loud your life has been, how much noise you let in because you thought you had to. A week later, I officially moved. I didn't tell anyone except Zara and Aunt Lilith. I found a 1-story cottage-style home outside the city, gated, quiet, with overgrown jasmine vines on the fence, and a mailbox shaped like a tiny red barn. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't expensive, but it had what I wanted: space, solitude, sunlight, a garden that didn't remind me of anyone but myself. The first night I slept there, it rained. Not a storm, just a soft, steady rhythm on the windows, like someone tapping gently to remind me I was still alive. I curled up with a book, my feet tucked under a fleece blanket, and realized I hadn't checked my phone in hours. I didn't miss the calls. I didn't miss the drama. I didn't miss them. But that didn't mean I didn't mourn something, because that's what no one tells you about walking away from your family. It's not just a victory. It's a funeral. You're not just choosing peace. You're grieving the version of them you always wished existed. The version that would have hugged you without agenda, listened without judgment, loved without ledger. And when you realize they never did, that they might never be capable of it, it breaks something. But that break is where the light gets in. The next day, I unpacked the last of my boxes and found an old photo tucked between 2 books. It was from high school, me and Sienna sitting on the porch swing, both wearing matching 4-H shirts. I looked happy, she looked wild. We both looked untouched by all the damage to come. I didn't rip it up. I didn't frame it either. I slid it into a drawer. Not out of malice, but because sometimes putting something away is its own kind of forgiveness. As the days passed, I built new routines: morning walks, evening tea, journaling without censoring myself. I took a woodworking class like I'd always wanted. I joined a book club full of women who asked me about me, not my bank account. The money was still there, untouched, growing quietly in well-managed accounts Zara had helped set up, but it no longer felt like the centerpiece of the story. I was. And for the first time in 35 years, that felt enough. It came on a Tuesday. A soft, thudding envelope in the mailbox I'd almost forgotten to check, nestled between a local grocery flyer and a coupon for gutter cleaning. No return address. Just my name, handwritten in loopy, familiar script. Sienna. I stood at my kitchen counter, fingers hovering over the seal, debating whether it was worth the breath it would take to read. Part of me wanted to drop it straight into the trash, along with the pity discounts and meaningless spam. But another part, the part that still believed people could surprise you, slit the envelope open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No guilt, no demands, just this. Viv, I've started this letter more times than I care to admit. There's no easy way to say it, so I'll just say it straight. I was wrong about a lot of things. I wanted your money because I thought I deserved it. Not because I earned it, but because I'd always been told someone would catch me when I fell. I assumed that someone would be you. After the Civic Hall, I was angry, embarrassed, but mostly scared. Because for the first time, I realized you weren't going to save me, and Mom and Dad couldn't either. Not really, not without losing more than they already have. So I got a job at a bookstore. It's not glamorous, it's not mine, but it's stable. I shelve, I sweep, I recommend paperbacks to teenage girls who think Colleen Hoover invented Heartbreak. And weirdly, I like it. I still have debt. I still have shame. But I also have clarity I never had before. I don't expect forgiveness, but I do miss my sister. I'm here if or when you're ready. S. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat for a while, the letter resting in my lap, the late afternoon sun casting soft gold through the blinds across my hardwood floors. For all her flaws, Sienna had finally said something I hadn't heard from her in years. The truth. And that truth wasn't redemption, it wasn't a fix, but it was real. And maybe for now, that was enough. I didn't write back immediately. Instead, I let myself feel what I needed to feel. I took long walks, I repotted my basil plant. I kept building a life that wasn't about running from my past, but choosing not to be ruled by it. Eventually, I did write back. It wasn't a long letter, just this. S. Thank you for your honesty. That means more than you know. I'm not ready for everything, but I might be ready for coffee. Neutral ground. No talk of money. Just two girls trying to remember why we used to laugh. V. Weeks passed. Coffee happened. It was awkward, tentative, and at times painfully quiet. But it also wasn't fake. There were no plays for sympathy, no carefully planted stories. She told me about a kid who came into the store asking for a grown-up book with dragons and kissing. I told her about my garden and the raccoon who kept stealing my tomatoes. We didn't hug, we didn't cry, but we smiled. That was a start. And as I walked back to my quiet house with the jasmine fence and the door I alone had keys to, I realized something. Winning the lottery didn't change who I was. It just revealed who would have stayed if I had nothing. It showed me what love looks like when it's real, and what peace sounds like when you finally earned it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the supporting role. I was the author, and I was writing the kind of life I didn't need to escape from.
So, what do you think? Was it justice, growth, or just a long overdue boundary finally drawn? Whatever your take, I'd love to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments, whether it's a personal story this reminded you of, or just one line that hit home. If the story spoke to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around, because there's another journey waiting right around the corner. Thanks for staying until the very end. It means more than you know.